Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Good morning, everyone. Today we will be with Aaron Waters, a media, games and animation specialist, as well as a maths specialist from the further education sector. And he talks about all the reasons why maths trumped media and why it led him to leaving FE to pursue his passion to teach media, games and animation.
Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org. Imagine having your own instructional coach available 24/7. Now you can with the Teaching How-Tos platform. This highly personalised social platform empowers busy teachers to learn and apply evidence-based teaching techniques, either independently, working collaboratively with their peers, or with our new AI assistant. The platform features over 160 visual guides to teaching techniques, designed to help you quickly and easily implement high-impact practices that boost student engagement and improve learning outcomes. Join over 200 institutions worldwide that are elevating their teaching practices with the How-To app. No gurus, just practical support anytime you need it. Interested in finding out more? Visit teachinghowtos.com and register for our next webinar.
Are you looking for best practices and innovative strategies to foster confident, lifelong readers? Watch sessions by thought leaders in education, literacy experts, and EdTech specialists from the International Reading Conference for free. The lineup included renowned speakers such as TV personality and education expert Basit Siddiqui and beloved children's author Michael Rosen. The three-day conference explored a range of topics at the forefront of the current educational landscape, with sessions relevant for all educators and key stages. Sign up to receive the recordings for free by visiting the Reading Solutions UK website at readingsolutionsuk.co.uk.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Hello again, you're back here with Sabrina, and I'm going to be talking to our lovely guest, Aaron, about the value of maths or vocational subject specialisms in FE. Now, which is better? Aaron's going to share his experiences on how he's gone through battling between the two. So, Aaron, would you like to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background in maths and your vocational subject specialism and how we've come to discussing this today?
Hi, my name's Aaron. I am a lecturer at the moment in HE, but I've had 12 years experience juggling between maths and media. So I'm an animator by trade, but a maths by teacher.
So when you say animator by trade, is that because you started off and your vocational kind of subject specialism was mainly in animation, and how did the maths become a part of it?
So we'll go back many years ago. So my degree's in animation. I'm a freelance animator as well, so I do bits on the side for people. Go back way to the beginning of my teaching career, part of my PGCE. I was at the college I've been at for 12 years doing my placement. I did get employed by them for media, and then someone came on maternity, and then I had to leave. And then the only option they gave me after that was, oh, you can come back and do maths. But bear in mind, they had no qualifications for maths. I think they were just really desperate at the time for lecturers.
So what did you have to do to then become a maths lecturer within FE? So they wanted maths lecturers.
Yeah.
They got you. You're not a maths lecturer at the time.
I'm not a maths lecturer, no.
So what happened?
I had a GCSE grade C in maths, and that was it.
Excellent.
I didn't even have A levels.
Robust recruitment. Okay, so what happened then?
So obviously, part of that contract was you have to come with us, you have to train. So I ended up doing my level 3 and my level 5. So I did it with you, Sabrina. We did it together.
Yes, I remember the days fondly.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't want to be harsh. Level 3 set me up for any form of training or teaching with maths. The level 5 sort of did, but again, I wouldn't call it robust. I would say it was 2 years of me doing basic maths lessons.
And in that experience, you've obviously became a maths lecturer full-time, or how did it work out in terms of your timetabling, your organisation and the expectations on you?
So after my first year of doing it, I became a 50-50 split. So I was happily doing that for several years, actually. It was only until lockdown that I was doing a 50-50 maths and media split, which was good. It was all right. I could handle it. It was a bit hard at times because like when the exams were done with all the math staff and English staff were off getting coffees, just finally chilling out a bit, because you know how it is after the exams. It's awful through the exams, and at the end it's just like, right, now and breathe.
Yeah, the decompressing.
The decompress, but I didn't get that at the end because I was part of the media team where they would have had their decompression a few weeks before when everyone was sitting the exam. I had to sit there and drag these level 1, level 2 students through a qualification that they didn't really deserve at the time.
And how did that impact you and your outlook as a maths qualified lecturer, but also a vocational specialist who had that passion for a different subject?
So it became about the maths. So even though it was 50-50 split, it was, if there was training on maths or media, I had to go for the maths. If there was some trip opportunity with media, I couldn't go because I had maths lessons. It all became about the maths.
So do you feel like the focus or the priority was provided to maths as a subject?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I think it's probably the lack of maths lecturers. So I'm going to blow my own trumpet here because I was a decent maths lecturer, weirdly enough, considering I have no background. I think that's what helped me, because I didn't have any formal qualifications and I sort of learned like the students learn.
Mm-hmm.
So I could, especially when I was working with my media game students with maths, I think those were some of the best years when it was the students that I could relate to. So I was teaching my media and game students maths, and then I got decent results from both the media side and the maths side.
Yeah.
So I think that worked well. I think the issue was when they moved me department.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
And why do you think that was an issue, or what was the issue there?
Well, they moved me from media and games and like artsy students to hairdressers and caterers, which are obviously students that I've never dealt with before.
So really your strength in teaching maths there, and correct me if I'm wrong, came from the underpinning understanding you have of those vocational students. So because you were in that vocation and you were teaching those vocational students, that maths element became kind of organically developed.
Yeah, it was easier to manage. And like I was saying, I was torn between the two. But when it was with my students that I knew, it was easier. Like I didn't feel as torn. But then obviously lockdown happened. The media course was getting rewritten to be more of a film production course. Whereas my background in animation, they saw, oh, you don't quite fit there. So we're just going to make you a 100% maths teacher instead.
Oh wow! So
Yeah.
they had right to completely remove your subject specialism
Yeah,
taught
essentially.
hours.
Was
that with discussion with you, or?
No, so the first discussion about it came about me possibly doing full-time maths with the media, games, art students. And I shut that down quite quickly, actually, because I was like, no, I need to have this creative outlook, because maths is one thing, it's okay, I can do it, but I needed something creative to do. I couldn't just be like maths teacher. But then lockdown happened, everything changes through lockdown, didn't it? And then I got a call about a month before I was due to go back from the manager of the other department saying, oh yeah, we want you to come here, we heard that your skills are good, blah blah blah. And that's what happened. I just got moved.
Okay. And did you have any support in that transition, or further upskilling or kind of development in keeping those math skills alive, but also whilst you're teaching maths and putting your media subject specialisms on a backseat, keep that alive? Like what happened in terms of your development as a practitioner in these dual subjects?
So it became a mono subject, really. Media just vanished. But because it was 2 years when I was just doing maths, and because it was quite intense, because the made me coordinator of the maths I was running it, I had a really nice team around me. I'm not going to be angry about that. There's a guy I'm going to do a shout out to, Manuel. I don't think I could have done it without him. My manager at the time, she was quite supportive. She gave me free rein of the timetable. Like, she let me in, and the team, the hairdressers and catering team were lovely. Like, I can't say anything bad about them. They were always there supporting. But for the media side, that sort of fell. Like, I didn't have anything pushing those skills for 2 years. During that time, I became a digital champion, so I was sort of helping push like teams and stuff like that, which kept it alive a little bit, but not as much as, obviously, I wasn't animating, I wasn't creating anything. It's just all maths.
And is that something that you eventually grew to love, or did you then become quite, I don't know, resentful of being so heavily focused on the subject that you didn't elect to study and develop it?
I think the first year when I was doing it, just after lockdown, it was obviously all new. Everything was different. I think it was good to have that that I can't think of the word. That familiarity. There we go. Yeah. So it's maths is something that I've done for years. Media changes year on year. Like, you have to change your modules and stuff like that. So in one way, it was good to have that while we were all getting used to coming back into the classroom, getting used to hybrid teaching, that sort of thing. So it was nice to have it, but I was still missing that creative output, and I was sort of seeking more. I became teaching and learning mentor the year after, or was it 2 years after, to try and obviously do something a bit more. But it was always back to, this isn't what I enjoy. This isn't what I did my degree in. This isn't what I started off in my career doing. So luckily, towards my final year there, I did manage to agree to do media again.
And then what happened?
And then I quit. Because the agreement was media, and they started getting me to do maths again.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you couldn't get away from the maths.
No, but it's the essentially it was like a carrot in front of me. You can keep the teaching and learning if you keep doing maths. But I felt at that time, a few months before we went through a personal tragedy, me and my wife, and at this point we were looking towards adoption. So it was just like, I have to think about my own happiness, my family's happiness, and think, what's more important, me doing something that I enjoy, that I love teaching, or having this role that's a bit higher? And like, I figured I can do teaching and learning in the future if I wanted to. So I was just like, no, I'm going to get rid of maths completely. I'm just going to focus on the bits that make me happy, the bits that I like being creative with. And then obviously, I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm still technically classed as a maths lecturer at this point, but I didn't want it. I wanted to be free of maths, but it's not like indefinite. I didn't want to be rid of it completely. I just wanted a few years to breathe, to just do my creative thing. And then I got given a maths group.
It's like you can't get away.
No, but it was, because where I worked was like, there was many buildings, and I had to go out of my building to another building to a different department to teach maths for them, because they were short of maths lecturers. And I get it, it's a business need. Colleges are businesses nowadays. It's the student before the teacher. That's how it feels. So I understand it from their point of view. It's just not what I wanted to do anymore.
Ultimately, they've obviously lost out, because not only did they lose a maths practitioner, but they've also lost a media one, and someone who's obviously versatile and got good results. But what could they have done, do you think, to have retained you and your skill sets? And what would you advise our listeners to maybe look for or ask for to avoid similar situation like this happening?
I think if they let me have a balance, it would have been fine. If I taught, again, like I mentioned before, where I was teaching maths to the media games, if I had a group of maths with the media games, I would have been happy. I would have stayed. I would have carried on doing what I was doing. I wouldn't have caused any fuss about maths. I would have kept doing it, because at the end of the day, I did enjoy teaching the maths element of it. I liked it with those low-level students when the penny dropped and it's just like, yes, you've got this. I was like, you didn't get percentages before. You might not have passed your exam, but you know how to work out 50% or something. I like that process. I like seeing the student improve. But it's when it's another department and it's affecting. I just got a bit angry with it, and I was always a positive person, and I felt like I was just going into work every day with negativity. I was just like, no, I don't want this negativity anymore. So I would suggest for anyone in a similar sort of situation to find that balance. Like, speak to your managers. They'll probably listen to you for the most part. I say for the most part, but it is that business need, isn't it? So it's finding a balance.
I think when you are multi-talented and you can teach across certain demanding or niche subjects, or ones that are difficult to fulfill, it's almost it doesn't matter what your own desires are. like you said, the business need comes first. But is there any escaping it? Do you think that, if you had stayed in that situation long term, or if you'd gone to another organization and tried the same thing, would you have ever escaped that constant pull back to maths?
I like to think I would have done at some point in the future, because there are members of staff that started off teaching maths at the beginning and have escaped it. But I think it was just unlucky for me. Like, it's a time when I wanted to escape it, there wasn't enough maths staff. They needed the maths staff. And it's always going to come down to that. Have we got the maths and English staff? No? Well, let's get maths and English staff in. Number one priority, maths. But it's even gone down to like timetabling, the timetable maths and English fests around vocation. And obviously I see both sides of that. I understand the reason why they're doing it, and also the frustration vocational wise.
So do you find that maybe too much emphasis is placed on English and maths? And is that a result of the reforms and that conditional funding rule that kind of was brought in a few years before COVID, that's driving all of this focus?
Yeah, I believe so. I think the issue, the place I used to work and probably cross-country FE, is everyone's jumped on the GCSE maths bandwagon. And if you look at the progress points given for functional skills versus GCSE and the reforms in functional skills, neither of them are suitable for about 65-70% of the learners. I think if they looked at more functional skills, more straightforward real life maths, even embedding it into the curriculum, embedding it into that media curriculum, that curriculum around it, it would be a lot more beneficial to the learners than saying, oh, I've got a grade 4. What's the point in the grade 4?
I remember when I first started teaching, the vocational teachers, nearly all of them, actually taught English and maths as well.
Yeah.
So they used to teach it and it was embedded into their practice. And you didn't have maths and English specialist. You had, drama teacher who taught 2 hours of functional skills English and a couple of hours of maths. And it was just threaded through very, very organically, because it was functional
key skills back in those days.
Key skills as well, yes.
Key skills.
So it's interesting how that change, that reform has now led to a real big heightened focus on English and maths. And as a result, the kind of plugging of that gap using people like yourself who can do both, but then ultimately has to sacrifice what you want to do for what you have to do.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was going to say, how can you get involved more so with that vocational team and not lose that sense of belonging when you've got such high demands on being a math specialist or an English specialist or anything that's in? Is it that you think it was very organizational specific? Do you think that would occur anywhere else as well? So how could you maintain those vocational links if you've been taken away from that? Because you said you lost that CPD element. And do you think that was organizational specific, or do you think it's probably a bigger picture, a bigger issue?
I reckon it's probably a bigger issue, a bigger picture. FE is guided by, obviously, government and what they say. And I think this heightened focus on English and maths, I'm not saying it's not necessary. We do need, obviously, a focus on English and maths, but I do think it's maybe the wrong focus on English and maths. But that takes precedent. So I really could have done with more vocational stuff, especially in media and games. It changes year on year. And being apart from that and being made to do maths and not being able to take part in all the activities, put me at a disadvantage. So I had to work in my own time to do it while other people get the time there. It got to a point where it felt like I was working 2 full-time contracts put together. But
So, and how was that managed? What support did you have to manage that? And did you have multiple managers? That's another thing. You've got 2 different subjects. Did you report differently? How were those operational elements mitigated, and what support was provided for you to enable you to do so? Because it's hard enough just teaching one, isn't it?
yeah, it
And you've
is.
got,
Yeah.
and you have to kind of switch hats, and you have to, get into different mindsets, different awarding organizations, different deadlines. That in itself is quite tricky. What was provided to you to enable you to do those 2 full-time jobs that you're referring to?
Nothing. From what I remember, not a lot. I just have to be candid with it. There wasn't a lot.
It's a bleak
given,
experience here, Aaron.
Yeah. From what I remember, no, not a lot. I was obviously pushed a lot into do the maths CPD. The CTL at the time for media was trying to drag me to do more stuff with them, but it was just, again, it came down to that. He's maths lecturer, we need him to do maths.
Right. And so was it upper management that was kind of feeding into that need for you to go to maths, rather than, say, within the teams that you were teaching?
I would say so, yeah. It's definitely trickles from the top.
And how did your colleagues feel about your divide? Could they feel the absence of you in the media team, and could the maths staff see how you were struggling to juggle, or maybe not struggling, but you were juggling multiple kind of roles? Did you see an impact between your colleagues and your peers?
Yeah, I would say, like, a lot of people made fun of me. Like in a it's not like a horrible way, but it was always a joke. It's like, oh, you're never going to escape maths. Even till the last day there, someone was like, you're still going to come back. My manager was like, are you still going to come back? We'll need maths lecturers in the future. You'll come back. She's like, no, I'm not coming back. I don't want maths. But it's, yeah, I think obviously in the media side, they realised, oh, Aaron can't cover that because he's got this maths lesson. Or Aaron can't go on this trip. He's got a maths lesson, so we have to find someone else to go on the trip instead. It was just that torn, like that dragged between one point and another point. It was just, it's not helpful for mental health. Especially when I was doing early days, late nights to get on top of my work. Because at that point, I still cared about my job. At that point, I was like, yeah, I want to make an impact. I want to show that I can juggle these 2 things. Even though I was dropping the ball everywhere, I was still trying to balance.
And when you were dropping the ball, were you then held accountable for it? Were your managers understanding that, we're putting a lot on you? Or was it very much you were still expected to perform at this level without the support, although you were teaching primarily a subject you weren't wanting to teach, and had been trained to teach kind of against your will, almost? Not against your will, but persuaded very hard.
I didn't really have an option. I couldn't have just done media. Like, they kept on saying, "Oh, we don't have the hours, but then they'll employ someone new." It's just like, okay. And it's like, oh, your skill set doesn't fit. It's like, what about my animation skill set doesn't fit in filmmaking? I still have to do pre-production. I still have to understand how to use cameras, lighting, effects, all of that sort of thing. But
no.
But yeah, my skill set didn't fit. But
your math skill set does, even when you weren't qualified.
My untrained math skill set, yeah. But it's because I was getting results. I think that was it. And my manager and media kept on saying, if you do bad, they're not going to want you for maths anymore. But it's my own pride. Like, I'm going to get these students through if I can. I'm not going to stop there and do nothing.
It could you imagine that you got so desperate to leave the subject that you had to tank your learner's achievement for a year?
I was tempted, I was tempted, but I just thought there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and then it just duped me. It was sort of like, on Looney Tunes, where you see the tunnel pin on the wall, and he goes to run through it and then slam right in the wall. That's me escaping maths, and then they were like, nope, he's a maths lesson. And countless cover for weeks and weeks.
Countless cover, right?
Yeah,
so tell me about that then.
At the end, the year where I wasn't supposed to be doing any more maths, 1/3 of my timetable was dedicated to maths and maths cover.
Just cover? Not just even cover. Your own class, not, just covering?
I had one group of my own, and the rest was cover.
Okay. And how did that go down?
Well, I couldn't say no, could I? When I've tried arguing it with certain members of staff, I just get thrown back. Well, it is your job.
Okay. Was it your job? Was it your agreed job for that year?
No, I don't think it was in my contract. You have to do cover for 1/3 of your timetable. But it's just expected, isn't it? It's that attitude of, we're all a team, we all chip in. And it's like, well, is anyone chipping in to help me?
Right.
It's what I was saying, like, because I was getting dragged to a different department to do the cover. But if someone in media was off, are they going to drag someone from somewhere else to cover them? No, they'll get the team to do it. They get people in that team. I even got, I had to cover English twice.
Well, why not?
In a different department. So I'm not even a maths teacher. Like English, no chance. I taught English for 2 days back at the beginning of my career, and I quickly got fired from it because I was like, nope, you can't do this.
So again, that might be an organizational thing, and it might be something that other people have experienced, and some of our listeners might be thinking, oh yeah, because I've certainly done it. I've gone in and I've taught business and I've taught IT and I've taught all of that. And I know that immense pressure you feel, that anxiety, that nervousness, because when you know your subject, you teach it differently. You have that passion, you have the confidence. If there's any questions coming our way, you can support your learners and those people in that classroom that have given their time of day to come in and be taught by an expert in the field. And the worst is when you go in, you don't know who they are, you're covering a lesson, it's a subject that you don't feel that innate passion for.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine what would happen if I had to do that year on year daily. So it is it's quite a sad story for you to have gone through a big proportion of your career having to be dragged back into that scenario. But is there something that we could suggest to the listeners in terms of moving forward? What should organizations consider? Let's talk about the top down. You were saying it trickles down from the top. What should they be considering? What could they be thinking about? What could they be doing to support valuable, practitioners like yourself staying?
I think what they need to remember is people don't mind teaching maths if they're teaching what they want to teach. So, like I was saying, I would have probably stayed there if I was teaching maths to the students that I was teaching media to. That would have been fine. And I understand the organisation with the staff. I think from the top down, they need to have more staff, more English and maths trained staff who are there to deliver maths and English because they enjoy teaching maths and English. They should have more sort of support for other staff who don't necessarily want to. Because towards the end, it became, because I think I started when it was very, you got vocation, you got maths. So I'm from that generation, but as I was moving on, it was like more English and more maths specific. lecturers. So I think me doing a bit of both was very rare across the college. But I think it's just trying to stay positive about it if you can. But I just lost all positivity towards the end.
I can imagine it being quite frustrating. And obviously, when you mentioned earlier the lack of support, I think must have played a big part in that. So in terms of support for someone like yourself, what do you wish you had? What support would have been useful at that time, looking back in hindsight?
I think managers to look at the balance of work, not just keep saying, well, you have to do 26 hours, you have to do 26 hours. Think about the impact of teaching 5 or 6 units vocationally, but then on top of that, having to teach maths, having to do those extra 4 hours of prepping, all the extra marking. Sometimes it'd be like one-to-ones outside of lessons as well, just to get them ready. It's the stress, the extra stress that staff don't need when they're already bending over backwards to do what they're trying to do.
And is there anything you think that you would have liked in terms of support with your practice, I know you mentioned, you gave a shout out to your colleague earlier in terms of support, but is there something formal that you think when you're not a maths specialist who's gone to traditional route into teaching maths, what should be available? What kind of network should be there in terms of CPD or mental health or any of those things? Is there anything you think you could have, should have had?
I think I was quite... towards the beginning of me doing maths, there was a lot there. I did my level 3, my level 5. There was also a GCSE top-up course for a few weeks as well that went on with some colleagues. From that point, they just assumed he knows everything. There we go, we'll do it. They did bring in a Maths and English conference once a year. But there just needs to be more cross-college collaboration. I think trying to put everyone maths and English separately into like departments works in some ways, but then in other ways it isolates you from the rest of the college.
Right.
So I think more collaboration between teachers, set meetings, like make sure that the timetable, there's a slot for meetings to be there so that you can actually sit with each other. You can share your experiences, share resources. That's something that I've noticed a lot in the maths teams that I've worked with. Everyone's like, this is mine, I'm keeping all of it. It's not, share it. Don't be so like your little bit of resource that you think could just be a tiny little thing could help someone else. I think, yes, I didn't have that experience to start off with, but I think because they assumed I did have that experience, I sort of learned on the job. So right. I learned the first year I was one lesson ahead of the students. So because I taught myself, I sort of taught it. But I just think managers need to listen to the staff a bit.
And is that all levels of managers, or do you feel like, primarily the organizational leads need to understand? Because I know you said your team leader understood, but wasn't ultimately able to do anything.
Yeah, essentially that's my story. Like, people understood but couldn't do anything about it. And the people who could do something about it were thinking more about, okay, so I've got X amount of students, but there's no member staff. So, sorry, you're going there. Not like, well, this isn't what you want to do. This isn't what you signed up for. It's just like, we need someone. And at the end of the day, it's their need is always above my own mental health and my own need and my own want. And ultimately, that led to me quitting FE.
Welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org. Imagine having your own instructional coach available 24/7. Now you can with the Teaching How-Tos platform. This highly personalised social platform empowers busy teachers to learn and apply evidence-based teaching techniques, either independently, working collaboratively with their peers, or with our new AI assistant. The platform features over 160 visual guides to teaching techniques, designed to help you quickly and easily implement high-impact practices that boost student engagement and improve learning outcomes. Join over 200 institutions worldwide that are elevating their teaching practices with the How-To app. No gurus, just practical support anytime you need it. Interested in finding out more? Visit teachinghowtos.com and register for our next webinar.
Are you looking for best practices and innovative strategies to foster confident, lifelong readers? Watch sessions by thought leaders in education, literacy experts, and EdTech specialists from the International Reading Conference for free. The lineup included renowned speakers such as TV personality and education expert Basit Siddiqui and beloved children's author Michael Rosen. The three-day conference explored a range of topics at the forefront of the current educational landscape, with sessions relevant for all educators and key stages. Sign up to receive the recordings for free by visiting the Reading Solutions UK website at readingsolutionsuk.co.uk.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
In higher education news, the BBC reports on the 5,000 students who have brought claims against University College London over the quality of teaching provided during the pandemic. The news website reports that the trial will move to the start of 2026. And will likely be the first, although current and former students from other universities are also seeking compensation. The lead claimant against UCL began his campaign for compensation while still a student, studying for a master's between 2020 and 2021. He told the BBC he paid £14,000 for his international politics degree, which ended up being solely online. He is suing UCL because he says he did not get what he paid for. Test cases will be identified in November, although lawyers representing the students said they would welcome sensible settlement proposals from UCL so that this matter does not proceed to trial. A spokesperson for UCL said the university had prioritised health and safety of the community and followed UK government guidance throughout the pandemic. The Standard covers Eton's plans to ban smartphones for the next academic year. From September, the school will issue boys with a phone that can only be used to make calls and send texts. Eton follows several other private schools who have made similar decisions and are urging parents to only buy smartphones if absolutely necessary. The Eton rules apply to pupils who are aged 13 and in their first year at the school. A letter sent to parents of new boarders said that any smartphones should be taken home after its SIM card was transferred to the school-issued simple handset. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says he's not in favour of simply banning phones for under 16s. In May, a committee of MPs said the new government should consider a ban within its first year because of what it called serious dangers posed to children. The PM said there was a serious question to be asked about what content children can access and how it could be controlled, but that a ban wasn't a practical way forward. Sir Keir was speaking on ITV's Good Morning Britain and said he would sit down with anyone to look at how to put better protections in place. He avoided questions about his own children's use of smartphones, saying he wanted to keep them out of political discussions of any kind. BBC News reports on a review commissioned by Reading Borough Council following the death of head teacher Ruth Perry. The review criticised a culture of high-stakes accountability that led to the public condemnation of individuals. The review included conversations with Mrs Perry's colleagues and governors at the primary school she led, as well as the head teachers and council officers in the local area. There were also meetings with the family of Mrs Perry. The review concluded that what happened to Mrs Perry showed the folly of the macho culture of high-stakes accountability. It also recommends the local authority support calls for Ofsted to scrap its one-word judgments. Mrs Perry's sister, Professor Julie Waters, said she welcomed the call for the council to join the campaign, but said the review goes very lightly on the local authority. Ofsted will publish a review later this summer. Finally, Ireland's RTE focuses on Queen's University Belfast's recognition of the support role pets play in educational attainment. 25 animals took part in a special graduation ceremony following the main summer graduations. Queen said the gesture is based on research that shows the important degree of support animals can provide as study buddies. Dogs, cats and a hamster took to the red carpet for the informal ceremony, with plenty of puns in the awards, which included a dogterate and a catificate. The university said research has shown that time spent with pets can improve concentration levels and lower stress, two things that are important when studying. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Jo Fox.
Welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
All right, we're back, and we were just talking about how the battle between maths and media were played out for Aaron over the last kind of decade and a bit, ultimately leading to Aaron leaving FE because maths kept winning. And Aaron was just saying how there was a lack of kind of support and lack of understanding. No, there was understanding, but lack of any ability to change that cyclical pattern of coming back to maths. So just to kind of capture next steps then for you, Aaron, you know, have you now moved into a vocational specialist area, or have you still got some maths with you?
So I'm now 100% maths lecturer. I'm not really. Can you imagine? I can imagine that's where my story's going to be, isn't it? No,
wait another year.
Vocational, so it's a much better environment. I've got research time as well, so I'm now spending some of my time focusing, researching on developing animations to help the community and stuff like that. So I've got a lot to sink my teeth into, and a lot that I'm really excited about. And I've not had a day where I've been negative.
Oh, that's good.
Apart
from today, where I've trudged up all of your past drama.
I've got a counselling after this. That's fine.
This is therapy. It's very therapeutic. I was going to say, when you've come back into your vocational specialism, do you find like you maybe missed out on opportunities to hone in on that skill because you were so focused on maths? And do you feel like there's a lot you need to now kind of, as you say, sink your teeth into because you might not have had that necessary subject specialist upskilling whilst you were lecturing in maths?
There's definitely, obviously, because media does move on fast. Animation technology is changing every year. There's a new update for software. So I am looking at, like, I'm teaching software that I haven't looked at for 5-6 years.
Right.
And so I've been luckily granted the time to upskill myself here.
Good.
So I'm looking at all these different softwares that I have looked at in the past, but I'm like 5-6 years behind.
Okay.
Because I've been dragged into stressful maths. So it's stressful maths. Well, it's given me that opportunity to do what I want to do and enjoy it. And you never know, I might be back doing maths in a few years. Hopefully not.
Well, it's definitely, there's a shortage of maths lecturers out there. So, you know, if you ever are considering, you know, give me a call. I'm certainly aware of some vacancies. I'm sure I can help. But I was just interested to hear. Obviously, you think you're about 5-6 years behind. So, is that another recommendation that you would give to anyone who's trying to balance those subjects? Is to obviously keep up those industry skills, and we know how. You know, Ofsted are very keen on industry experts and industry placement and staff going back into industry. So do you think that now is going to be driving people to continue that upskilling so they're not so far behind in kind of the industry standards?
Yeah, I would say the way I sort of kept on top of it was looking at the software myself.
Given time to do so, and was that encouraged by your? Yeah,
because it was all in my own time. I had to do it. I wasn't given any time by the area I was in to upskill. Even when I went to do media again, I wasn't given that chance to upskill with the software.
But were you given that for maths, or were you not given for any?
I don't know. In a way, there was more there for maths than there was for animation. But I think it was a little bit of politics in play because I wasn't teaching fully what I should have been teaching in the media and game side. So there was courses where I had animation on, but I wasn't teaching the animation for them. But I'm a trained animator with a degree who can teach over different softwares. But I think the issue with that is managers' lack of knowledge of my skill base. And I think they just assume, oh, he's just been doing maths. Nah, he can't do anything else.
Is this not discussed in your kind of appraisal process or performance review process?
I never actually had an appraisal since 2020.
Oh, is that because of lockdown? I mean,
so yeah, there was lockdown, and then when I was doing my next appraisal after that, I swapped departments, so someone else, and then I was doing the appraisal after that, and then I had a personal issue that meant that me and my wife were off work for a considerable amount of time, but nobody chased it up afterwards, and then I don't know what happened with the last year. It just never happened. Yeah, so it's literally been 4 years since I had an appraisal. But every year I just kept on getting outstanding because my observations were coming out good. So,
well, there you go.
But it does seem to be the common thread throughout my time in FE that if you're doing well, you don't tend to get a lot of feedback. It's if you're doing poorly, that's when you have a lot of people like, oh, what are you doing? How are you doing this? Do this better.
Do you feel like your practice, either in vocational or in your subject specialism or in maths, would have benefited from that feedback?
Yeah, it would have, especially vocationally wise, it would have been nice to have someone come in and give me like more hints and tips of, oh, how should you be doing this? I think because I was at the level of teaching and learning mentor as well, when I went back over to media, they assume that you know it all, but it's still good to get that feedback. So I did have an observation that wasn't the best, and that was the time I got feedback. And then after that, I grew with it, and I knew exactly what I had to change, and that was fine. But I got that within a few weeks of jumping straight back in the media, and they expect me to jump straight back into a course I've not taught for 2 years and shine. But there's a disconnect again between the development of.
But you're an experienced practitioner, and you've been working there, and it doesn't matter that you've been teaching a different subject in a different world.
Well, it's a different level of student as well, a different type of student.
It is, yeah. It is. It really is, and obviously the listeners out there that know I've come from a very much of a similar background of English and maths, and I can vouch for this gentleman here and tell you that it's a different category. It's a different level of pressure and stress and demand mentally and emotionally and physically to teach maths and English to what it is to teach a subject specialism. Obviously equal probably stress levels, etc., but in a different way at different pinch points in the year. And so when you are juggling two sets of demands and different pinch points and different, it can become very tiresome very quickly. So I do appreciate everything you're sharing with us today, Aaron, and I think a lot of it definitely resonates with myself and will probably resonate with a lot of lecturers out there that are juggling multiple roles and multiple subjects. But we are coming to an end in our show today in another segment. So what I'm going to ask you to do now, Aaron, is probably summarize your experience, the good and the bad, if there's any good in there, and tell us what you would like to see moving forwards for further education for either subject specialist or maths lecturers or those who are in between.
So I think to summarise, I didn't hate FE. I really enjoyed it, and maths as well. I didn't hate maths. I quite liked teaching it, and like I said, seeing that penny drop moment with the students. But I needed that balance. If I didn't have the balance of the media and the creativity, I found after that 2 years of just purely doing maths, I was losing my mind. I think going forward, FE needs to understand that I think it's just the maths and English push in total. I think they need to realise GCSE is not necessarily the way forward, and there needs to be something to help with these students, because they lose confidence if they can't pass it. The staff are losing the will to live because they're just trying to get them to do it. And I just feel it's not establishments, it's not like centres' fault. They are just doing what they think they have to do. And if they're understaffed, I understand it. I just didn't like it.
And some people might, some people might really enjoy the juggling and the toing and froing and whatever, but obviously that wasn't your take on it. If any of our listeners want to reach out to you, Aaron, and pick your brains about, media, animation, or more about maths, how can they get in touch with you?
Feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. It's Aaron Waters. So it's Waters, WARTERS.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up today, folks. I'm going to say bye to our lovely guest, Aaron, and bye to all the listeners. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.
Thanks everyone. I'll see you next time.